Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. Let's get out in the garden today. It's January 24th. I'm trying to get some of these rows ready. I have already prepared some, and I got some of my transplants in this row here. I thought I'd stop and go now. I've taken out all the plants except this one Brussels sprout, and we'll see how it does. We'll let it continue to grow. But what I'm doing is I'm preparing this bed for the next planting, and it's been roughly about a year since this was, well, I say a year, it's not been quite that long, but these beds were put in kind of early, and while I'm planting I said I'll go ahead and dress them up. What I'm using is chicken litter. I mixed me up a 5-gallon bucket of chicken litter. Now for my particular situation I use 2 cups of lime in there, egg lime, and I use a half a cup of azomite dust. So make sure I have the minerals in here. But anyway, I mix them up to 5-gallon bucket, and then on this, because this is pretty poor soil, you can see over to the side, it's kind of really a sandy soil. It has a little loam but not much. So I'm trying to build it. So I use about a half a bucket for this 50-foot row. It's 3 foot wide because I'll be planting 2 rows on this 1 row, so it'll actually turns into, say, 100 foot of planting area. And it varies with the crop. Sometimes I'll put 4 rows, 1 on each side to drip line. But being I'm going to be putting in some broccoli and some cabbage and stuff in here, I'll just have two drip lines right now. But I thought I might go over that. What I'm dressing it up with is about 1 inch of compost just to refresh it. And I put down my chicken litter first because I don't do till. So that'll put it under the soil where the microbes, where stay moisture and the microbe can get to it and feed them and start feeding my plants. I'm planting up some of my little plants here. This here's some more broccoli. But I got to thinking, some of you might not really think about how good the advantage is to growing your own plants from seeds. This tray, which was 72 plants. Now some of them didn't do too well. You know, something or other's happened throughout. Maybe I let them get too dry or something. But what I'm getting at is when you go to the store, Walmart or something, I was noticing the other day, a little 6-cell flat or a 6-cell plants were $3.95. At that rate, roughly, when you plant a tray this size, that's $50. When you start looking into what you're spending, now I don't buy the expensive trays and the holders and stuff. I just get the cheap ones, and they reuse quite a bit. I feel like that I come out ahead that way. It would be easier with the heavy duty trays and stuff like that, but what I'm getting at, even if you did buy the heavy duty trays, that first year it would cost you about what you pay to buy plants. So there's a couple of advantages to growing your own. One is cost, and the other is variety. Now what I'm doing here is I'm coming down the row and I'm taking and I'm making a hole every so often. Here I got my homemade divot tool, and I just make the hole. I just push it down and wall it around a little bit, and then I take a plant and it's kind of a simple procedure. I just drop it off in the hole and I push it down just a little bit, and that's the way I leave it. Now I was coming down and covering these up, but I find that they do better, and I plant them a little deep, these brassicas, which works real well. But I find that not putting the extra dirt, let it wash around as it goes, works real well, and the plants seem to thrive a little bit better that way. Now I always wet my soil down first so my dirt don't fall back in the hole once the divot hole is made. That way, you know, I can actually get a plant in it. But like I say, it's funny now. I watched Charles Dowden and I watched him, and like I say, I didn't pick up on that at first, that he was leaving that hole that way. And I didn't realize how much of a difference it makes, especially when I'm planting lettuce or something like that. When they're really small, they have a little bit of protection from the rain, and then they tend to do better. I mean, not the rain, the wind. Then they tend to do better, you know, as far as jumping and going. When you're putting in drip line, now I use about 4 or 5 different drip lines, and I have different volume flows too. But when you're putting this in, now this drip line here is 8-inch emitters, so every 8 inches there's an emitter. Now I planted every other emitter on this, but what I do is I utilize this for more than one thing. So this drip line can be used for more than one thing. As I come down here, and once I got all my broccoli in, I had some rutabagas, and so what I did with these is I just dropped them at every 8 inches, and so it makes it to where I can utilize this row for multiple things. Now you could plant your plants, you know, a lot of places that sell drip line, they sell it with 1 inch or 1 foot emitter, so every 12 inches they've got an emitter. Now that's fine and dandy, but depending on what you're growing, it's kind of like over here on this row. Now on this row I'm growing greens, and they're planted real close. Greens do best when they have a lot of water. You don't want to stress them, so you want a lot of water. Well, these drip emitters are every 6 inches, and so what happens is it gets a real good even flow, plenty of moisture, and you end up having everything thrive, as far as because it has plenty of moisture in that area. But on a lot of things like my broccoli over here, these are actually on 18-inch spacing. So what happens is, whenever I put these in and I stagger the row, where just like on most of them, where my plants are kind of staggered on the other side, so I don't have 2 emitters straight across from each other. And what that does is give you a little bit more room. You can put you can actually put your plants in closer, but they'll have plenty of room to grow. They won't overcrowd each other, and they'll thrive. So anyway, I thought I'd touch on that too. Most of the time I plant in like a 72 cell tray, and sometimes I use some 50s, but normally 72 if I have it available. But a lot of times I start plants in a 200 cell tray like this one. Now these plants, and I'm sure there's probably a few cells that the plants they didn't germinate, but anyway, this is my lettuce, and this lettuce is perfect. It's got the perfect size cell as long as you keep moisture, because once it starts putting on a lot of leaves, these cell trays here are really shallow and small, and so on something like this you want to make sure that you keep the moisture there. A lot of times, and especially if it gets warm in here, the sun isn't out today, but when it gets warm you want to take and give it some more water. You can see on these trays right here, this is starting to dry out, so I'm going to have to come in here and water this, make sure it gets watered today. The tray that this is setting in, it has holes in the bottom there. You can see where the white is showing through, and so once I water this, everything that's extra will drain on out. But tomorrow we'll start putting this out, and we'll plant these directly from here into the ground. We won't pot them up. Now sometimes certain things, if I grow them in here, I'll pot them up into a bigger pot, whether it be anything, any type of seeds. But on lettuce like this, it's perfect. Just pop it in the ground and go on. But that's at 200 cells, that's a lot of lettuce. But not that you have to plant it all. Now this is a variety. It's a mixed lettuce, and being that it's a mixed lettuce, you might want particular ones more over the others, so you can take and pick and choose which ones, and then if you want, give the rest away. But like I say, it's better to have too much than not enough. I also want to talk about soil biology. Now, we know, those of us that do permaculture or we do no dig, we understand that the reason we do this is because this method is because we know the importance of soil biology. But if you're new to this, I want to stress the fact, now, you know, a lot of times they talk about putting cover crops on it, or now a lot of people they'll dress it with compost, you know, after the season or something like that. They might use leaves or something like that. The soil needs to have some way of retaining moisture through the year. Now, if you only grow your crops, say in the springtime, and it gets hot and then your crops are gone, and you don't keep a certain amount of moisture in there when it gets dry, what happens is that your soil biology, the microbes in the soil, start to die, because they're just like us. They can't thrive without moisture. And so what ends up happening is each year when you start to plant again, you end up having, it takes a while for it to start getting that moisture back. Now what's going on here, and you can see where the drip nozzles are. This is a 6-inch drip line, so it's got a emitter every 6 inches, and I'm fixing to plant this. I just top dressed it, so it's the compost is a little bit dry. And what I've been doing here in the last few days, of course, I just moved these out of the way so I could top dress it and then come back and put my drip emitters back. So the soil is moist down below this, and it's getting moisture right now. But what I'm doing is I'm keeping moisture there so the soil biology, or that soil life, can thrive. That way, once my plant comes in, there'll be plenty of microbe life in that soil to take and start bringing nutrients up to my plants. Because like I say, the whole purpose of this is to feed the soil and let the soil feed your plants. But if you have to realize that it's just like you are, that if you don't have some type of liquid, that you're going to shrivel up and die. So be aware of this, and like I say, when it's dry, you need to come up with some method to keep your soil moist, whether it's get a heat tolerant or drought tolerant crop to put on there so that it keeps it shaded and keeps some of the moisture in, or periodically water it. And I know we don't want weeds in our garden, and I try to keep mine kind of weed free. They will blow in, they will end up getting in there. It's just something you're going to have to deal with when you garden. But be aware, take care of your soil. Don't just take care of it while you have a crop growing. Realize that you have to take care of it year round. Well, it's close to the end of February, and as you can see, we've got a lot of green in the garden. We've got a lot of our seedlings put out. Got our beds revitalized. We were going to leave some of these, but we've got them revitalized. We've got one left here. We're going to seed in some turnip mustard and such as that. But we have all these beds nice and fixed up. And now we'll use this one is still blank from here down on this section of the garden, this bed right here. And what we'll do is we're going to put the rest of our onions. Once we plant this row over here, finish it out, it's about halfway, but once we finish it out, the rest of our onions will go over here. For those of you that follow around, this is the part of my bed that I've had a lot of problems with root knot nematodes. So what I'm going to do is plant brassicas up here again and greens, and then I'll try to plant some extra mustard greens here during the time. And then whenever I redo these beds, what I'm going to do is I'll actually mow them down, mulch them up with the bagging mower, and I'll spread them on these beds before I put the next coat of compost. They should give off a toxic chemical that kills the root knot nematodes, and we'll see how that works. That way we can keep it organic and deal with the problems, so we won't be restricted with this part of our garden. I hope you found some helpful information in today's video. If you have any questions, well, of course, just ask them down in the comments. If you think that there's something that can help the rest of our watchers, well, put that down in the comments too. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe, hit the bell button so you'll be notified, and give this video a good thumbs up. Happy gardening.